The Wits Machine Intelligence and Neural Discovery Institute, or in short, the MIND Institute, has been established with the objective to drive homegrown innovation that addresses the unique challenges and opportunities presented by the African context. Ahead of the official launch of the MIND Institute later today, I'm joined by Professor Benjamin Rosman for a discussion on how this AI research hub is looking at unlocking AI potential in Africa. Professor, thank you for joining us on Power Lunch Southern Africa today. Can you start just by unpacking for us what are the unique opportunities for Africa when it comes to AI?
Right, well, it's great to be here. And AI is happening everywhere and happening to all of us. And, I think it's really critical that Africa takes a really active role in how we participate and how we contribute to, what's happening globally. Now, there's so many different angles here. There's so many unique problems. But I think this really talks to what are our strengths. And our strengths come from many things. We've got many amazing, really strong, talented students that have studied a whole lot of interesting fields, have really kind of deep backgrounds. And, we tend to look at things from different perspectives. In an AI sense, much of this comes from the fact that we don't have all the compute of the big tech companies. We don't have all the data, for example, for the languages we speak. There's much less data than there would be for English, for example. And so we're driven by necessity to think about different kinds of innovative solutions, ways to build AI that's more efficient, that serves our people better.
How is AI being applied to address real problems facing Africa today? And how do you see AI having a role in shaping the future of science and society in Africa going forward?
What's interesting about AI is that this is a technology that really at its core is about intelligence. And how do we solve any problem? Well, we throw more intelligence at it. And we see this everywhere. Whenever we're faced with a challenge, whether that's in our private lives, whether that's as a community or an entire society, we always look for solutions. And what does it mean to look for solutions? Usually bring our heads together and think about something. And so as we're getting into an era where our tools are more capable of giving us, like, acting as brainstorming partners, helping us come up with good solutions, right? It's really important that this finds its way into everything we do. Now, again, this could talk to anything from, are we able to communicate in common languages? Are we able to look at agriculture and grow crops in the most efficient ways? How do we think about congestion in cities? And how do we think about bigger problems like distributing goods and services to all those who need them? Now, at the core of what we're doing here at Wits now is not just using this technology, which is what many people are doing and should be doing. We're actually looking at how do we develop the next generation of this technology so that it's really built with the needs of Africa in mind, and that we're contributing to its development rather than just consuming tools that have been developed elsewhere in the world.
I mean, just elaborating on that conversation around sort of the work that you've started speaking about that the Institute is doing, what role do you think academics should be playing in AI, particularly in Africa? I mean, in the West, we see a lot of the private sector driving the work around AI, but potentially there's more of a bigger role that academia could be playing in Africa. What is your view on that?
Absolutely. And I think this talks to so many different directions. On the one hand, it's important that people are aware of what's happening, not just from a kind of upskilling perspective, but to make sure that we're embracing these technologies in a constructive and positive way that's not going to leave our society worse off. There's an important role for academia in the way we train, in a more formal setting. But also, I think, just kind of helping to steer this conversation in a way that contributes most positively. Now, when we kind of look at what's happening, it tends to be that academics sit in isolation, working on certain kinds of problems, but we've got an opportunity and a need at the moment to bring together large numbers of these academics to really firstly stay on top of what's happening, be able to anticipate changes, be able to communicate them to the relevant stakeholders, whether that's the general public or government and so on. And again, just make sure that what we're doing isn't falling prey to what happens elsewhere and just being quite unpurposeful in the way that we adopt these technologies that, to be honest, are going to have a large impact on all of us. I mean, already having a large impact on all of us.
The Mind Institute is seeking to take a very collaborative approach. Which industry partners are you specifically looking to partner with?
So our first major collaborator is IBM, who's been very supportive in helping us set up. The same has been true of Google. But so we've been talking to a lot of the major networks and a lot of the major tech companies around the world. But when it comes to kind of the local situation on the ground, we're really there in discussions with a number of partners from a number of different sectors. And again, this talks to the idea that AI is a technology that affects everything. Whether even if you're someone who's got a very small shop, selling very small number of items to a small customer base, even then it makes sense to have more intelligence, gain more insights and understanding about what your customer base is working with. But now we can scale this to talk about any sector, any market, whether we're looking at manufacturing, whether we're looking at industry, whether investment sector, the banking sector, anything like this, right? If we can be applying more intelligent technologies to these sectors, then we stand to gain a lot. So, again, this talks to knowing your customer in various sectors. This talks to better optimization of processes and production of whatever it is you might be producing. We really want to make sure that we're talking to the breadth of society. And in fact, on that front as well, we're investing quite heavily in developing the policy component of our institute so that we're really, again, contributing to the discussions around policy to make sure that we don't have AI that is rolled out in a way that's maybe, carries heavy bias with it or is going to be, adversely affecting segments of society that might be taking jobs without people realizing what's happening, right? We want to make sure that we're respecting people's privacy, that we're respecting people's rights, and that, we're moving forward as a society, as a country, in a very driven, purposeful way that will really maximize the benefit that we're seeing that's really just starting to be unlocked.
Right. I mean, one of the risks, I think, one of the obvious risks here is that a lot of good work can be done around thinking and research and so on, and then it never quite gets implemented the way it's envisaged. What do you anticipate will be the biggest challenges or challenge in bridging the theoretical research and the practical applications?
That's a great question, and that's always the case. What's been interesting with AI over the last few years, what really got everyone excited about the space was, I think, ChatGPT and similar kinds of large language models that were kind of really opened for free access to the general public. And with these things starting to roll out, people just dived into this and got really excited. Now, what was interesting there is that the core technology driving these big applications, which is called a transformer neural network, was only developed in 2017. And so the gap between the kind of theoretical ideas and the impact on society was only about 5 or 6 years, which is quite remarkable. And so we're in an era where, you're not waiting 100 years between some big breakthrough and the impact in society. This is something that happens getting close to real time. And so what we're doing is we've set up this institute with a core that focuses on theory, and surrounding that, we're interfacing with industry, we're interfacing with other kinds of researchers that work in more applied spaces so that these ideas can flow easily outwards. What we want is problems flowing in from kind of different partners all over. We have interesting application areas, and there might be some technical challenge that needs to be solved, and that will flow into the center of our institute, where we have a lot of more theoretical people. And again, then those ideas will flow outwards again through a number of mechanisms we've set up to ensure that we've got kind of the shortest possible time between new breakthroughs and the impact that is felt kind of to the person on the street.
Professor, that's all we have time for. Thank you once again for your insights. That was Professor Benjamin Rosman, Director at the Wits Mind Institute.